Ever since the release of Overwatch 2, the tank role has been the most dominant role there is, and that's largely due to the shift from a 6v6 to a 5v5 setup. And now you only have one tank, so that tank can definitely throw the game or carry the game. So today we're going to be covering one of the most prominent tanks there is, even after the recent nerfs to this tank, and that's going to be D.Va. Right, D.Va has so much to her kit and her movement, and we're going to be talking about pretty much how you can counter her, because although a lot of people know how to play D.Va, not many people know how to counter her, unfortunately. So I'm going to be giving you guys great input on which heroes work well against D.Va, which playstyle works well against D.Va, and lots more helpful tips. So as always, before we continue on the video, if you guys are new to the channel and just checking out this video for the first time, I do lots of Overwatch guides ranging from positioning, countering heroes, as well as new meta changes with recent nerfs that happen. So if you guys enjoy that type of content, definitely do subscribe, check out my other videos as well, and let's get straight into it. Alright, so before we begin, I want to give a quick disclaimer. This video is not going to focus on how you can play D.Va, so if you guys want to see that video, do let me know below in the comment section. I'm going to fairly assume you guys know how D.Va works, what her skills are, and what her role is in general, right? But we're going to focus on what playstyle D.Va likes to be in and how you can shut that down. So first of all, D.Va is a frontline tank, right? There's certain tanks that kind of are midline. For example, that would be a Roadhog. You kind of want to stay in the midline a bit, not too far out because you don't really have a shield. Now, although you're very tanky as a Roadhog, you can actually close that gap, right? But you're most likely in the midline. On the other hand, D.Va is a gap closer. She usually frontlines so hard that she will actually sometimes dive past the enemy tank to get to the enemy supports, right? So kind of quote unquote that dive meta that we've been seeing very prominent, right? So when you understand that D.Va likes to be up in your face most of the team fights, then you start to play a bit different. For example, what you want to do is try to boop D.Va away from your supports and DPS. That's probably the best way to shut her down if we're just talking positioning wise. Now this could be very hard because D.Va does have her defense matrix, so she does shut down a lot of CCs or crowd control that does basically prevent that gap from being closed, but you want to try to mitigate that as much as possible. Now the best help for you here in terms of roles is your tank. Your tank can actually help you close that gap a lot better, whereas if you're a DPS, especially if you don't have that much mobility, D.Va can actually chase you down pretty hard. So the best thing for you to do here is communicating with your tank very well, making sure your tank is body blocking most of D.Va's missiles, primary fire, all her different skills. And I kind of talked about this previously where I basically broke down how you guys can counter Roadhog, so definitely do check out that guide because I think it has a lot of helpful tips you can also apply to countering D.Va, because it talks about positioning and movement versus the tank, right? Now both tanks are very good in this meta. But going back to D.Va here is understand her skills and cooldowns, right? D.Va, when she's out of her big D.Va form, right? People call her mini D.Va or small D.Va. You need to understand that she does not have that much to save her. Everything is in D.Va's kit. There are certain heroes out there that don't really rely too much on their skills and they're kind of self-sustaining based on mechanical skill. D.Va is definitely not one of those. When she has her skills on cooldown, her skill is on cooldown as well, right? If that makes sense. So make sure you're watching when she has her defense matrix on or off. Let's talk about this skill for a second here, because I think not many people understand what's the point of this skill just based off of how I've seen competitive games being played. Defense matrix pretty much sucks up things off the ground. Think of it as kind of like a vacuum. Whatever thing you throw out there will be sucked out. Anything that's going to be a negative, anything that's going to be of a negative effect on the enemy team or the D.Va's team for that sense, she will pretty much just suck it up and it'll be gone. So let's take Sojourn for example here, because that's a very good example. When Sojourn uses her E skill, D.Va can easily just suck that off the ground, and that's a very good skill you want to time properly. So the best thing I tell people here is to pretty much hit scan spam D.Va. Make sure you bait out that defense matrix, and when the defense matrix is off, then you commit. That's kind of one of the biggest flaws I see a lot of people making, is they commit too early and D.Va basically shuts them down with the majority of the defense matrix. You'll see Sojourn throw in her E skill and a bunch of more skills there, and D.Va vacuums up all of it, and then she dives in with her missiles and just annihilates the team, right? So first of all, make sure you beam her, and she's going to be forced to use defense matrix, right? Just based off of your regular left clicks or hit scan skills. And then when she uses it, she's open and her team is open. Then you commit, right? So bait out that defense matrix. That would be the first tip for you guys here. And next, I'm going to be covering D.Va's ult, because I think it's something that is not quite understood by a lot of people. Although it seems very simple, it's a bomb that she throws out that deals damage unless you're hiding behind basically projectiles, buildings, or Reinhardt's shield. Now, let's segue a bit as to which tanks are good here. pretty much anything that has some sort of shield, for example Sigma or Reinhardt, or even a Winston. A Winston is a very good example here for this case, can shut down her ult pretty much entirely. Now if you are a very ballsy Winston, the best thing you can do for your team, if you find out that you're in the open, there's nothing nearby, your Kiriko just use her left shift skill so she can't teleport out, and it's going to be detrimental to your team if that bomb goes off, is that you can just kamikaze, right? Just become the hero, jump in on that D.Va bomb that's about to go off, put a bubble shield around it, and then if you can get out, that would be the best. If you can't, at least you did negate that huge impact it would have had if you annihilated your whole team. I've never seen a Winston dive in on that D.Va bomb and put a bubble around it, or even bubble their team. You don't have to jump on the bomb, right? Let's be smart here, right? So if the bomb is kind of far away from your team, you have two options. You can jump on the bomb if you can't protect your entire team, or if your team is grouped up, jump on them and put a bubble around them. But most likely what's going to happen is D.Va will throw the bomb at them, so you kind of want them to get out and then you bubble the bomb. So there's different ways of doing it, but a Winston is a very good viable example, and you can have a really nice play there where everyone's like, wow, look at that Winston, that's a great tank. Or Reinhardt can just put up a shield, you can hide behind your Reinhardt, Sigma, etc. There's lots of ways, right? But usually the best thing is to just kind of be aware, have your game sense pretty high, and you can kind of tell when a D.Va is about to use her ult. Look for playstyles where she's kind of at a position in a weird location, right? So when you're playing against a D.Va, you'll notice that like basically throughout the map and throughout the fights, she's kind of staying back, she's jumping in, she's diving in like I mentioned earlier, and she has a very strategic playstyle. When you notice a shift in that playstyle, just like when you notice a shift in any hero's playstyle, that's kind of a good tip for any hero pretty much, they're about to use their ult, right? A very good example here, and I know I'm sidetracking a bit here, would be a Reaper. Reaper usually wouldn't be in the back line of your team, right? They would be in the front. So when you see a Reaper, it's kind of like flanking in the back, out of position in a weird location, he's about to use Death Blossom. And if you can basically measure out when heroes are about to do certain things, you can have insane impact in Overwatch too. And most of the game is honestly game sense, and mechanically skilled players will do well in general, but you can also up your game based on how you can read different ults. And lastly, we're going to wrap up the video by talking about which counter picks are good against D.Va. And to be quite fair, pretty much anything that's hit scan oriented damage wise works well against D.Va. For example, a Zarya is not necessarily a hit scan, but because of her beam, she does a lot of damage as a tank, and that's a perfect counter there. Because her defense matrix doesn't really mean much because you're not throwing projectiles, and you can just deal a whole lot of damage to a D.Va or her team based on being a Zarya. And pretty much if D.Va throws in her bomb, you can bubble yourself or your teammates. Now once again, because of the recent nerf, you have to be careful with the timing there, but you can definitely do that, and it does provide you with a lot of value. Now a great support against the D.Va would definitely be a Lucio or Kiriko, pretty much anything that has a lot of mobility and can enable your team to die fast, because D.Va does like to kind of chase you around, bully you around, push you off of edges, because she does have that missile and that closing distance ability. You do want to basically be able to move and quick on your toes. So if you do have that advantage, that's going to shut down D.Va pretty well. So now in general, just make sure you guys are playing around her playstyle in a very good manner and making sure that you're understanding her skills and cooldowns and positioning yourself in a way that does punish D.Va. And if you can shut down her positioning, because she does like to dive you pretty heavily, and you can shut down her ult, D.Va's not going to be a problem, right? So if D.Va's popping off in your game and she's dropping 30 kills and she's destroying your team, you're probably doing something wrong more than that D.Va's popping off, because it doesn't take that much skill to play D.Va. Now to master D.Va, it does take a lot of skill, but most people don't really master her because she's so easy to use, right? She's one of those unique heroes that have not a high skill ceiling, right? So she's easy to use, but you can definitely raise that skill ceiling and keep improving. And yeah, that's gonna wrap up the D.Va countering guide. I hope you guys did take away some very helpful tips. Now I know most of these might sound like they're cliche tips or you already knew this, but definitely try to work on these. And it's usually the simple things in life that we ignore the most, right? Positioning and watching cooldowns and skills. But that's honestly the best way to shut her down, because like I said, she relies heavily on her skills. So as always, if you guys enjoyed this guide and do want to see more of it, do let me know below in the comment section, as well as check out my other guides, and definitely consider subscribing, because we've been growing so fast. I mean, I started making Overwatch videos not too long ago, basically 3 to 4 weeks ago. I was averaging 50 to 60 views, and now we're breaking thousands of views. So I do want to say thank you guys so much for all the recent support. It definitely does mean a lot, and it's not going unnoticed for sure. So I have a lot of stuff planned in the future for improving these guides and making them more collaborative with you guys.